All right. And as you all probably already know, this is webinar style, so we'll just be talking to each other to the void of people that are attending.
I've only attended webinar format Zoom calls. I've never been one of the speakers at one.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, welcome as a panelist. If fun fact, as we let people come in and join this, I see we had a couple people already joining. If you do want to send any like link or whatever in the chat, just make sure that you specify, because usually the default is that it'll go to all panelists. So if you have something you want to send to the panelists, that's fine. But if you want to send it to the attendees, I've made this mistake so many times. You have to make sure you click to do all the panelists and attendees. So that's something I always mess up if I'm trying to do that. All right, so it looks like we had a couple people joining us. We'll give it a few more minutes, maybe until a few after 3 o'clock, and then we'll go ahead and get started. If anyone was wondering, yes, this is artwork from Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're a fan, I absolutely love it. My wife and I are just finishing up Legend of Korra, just from some filler talk. I don't know if anyone knows about that series.
Awesome. How is Legend of Korra? I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I love the original Avatar.
So, I mean, I haven't finished it, and I hear that the ending, there's some banter back and forth about how it ended, but I will say it's really great. It's not the perfection that Atla is, but it is a really great show, and I'd highly recommend it. So I definitely recommend going into it, because who knows how long things are going to last on Netflix with all the streaming coming up. So highly recommend that you go and watch Legend of Korra. But it's not the perfection of Atla, I will say that, but it's a great TV series. Yeah.
Awesome. I think I watched all of Avatar within like 3 days when it came out on Netflix when I first saw it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like
I really liked Korra too. My girlfriend and I watched it. We just like had it like as a background show, and then we just got really invested into it. So it's a good show.
Yeah, highly recommend it. All right, so it looks like we got about 19 people so far. Let me check to see how many people we're expecting, just to see if we are getting close to the amount that registered.
Oh, I just noticed, I think a lot of us are wearing green. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Logan, I'm sure you did on purpose, but.
I will say I wore my William Mary polo on purpose for this, so.
Oh, I thought we were supposed to wear William and Mary stuff. That's why I put on my shirt.
We did encourage you all to wear William Mary stuff, so maybe there's a purpose to that. Then maybe it's not crazy. Let's see.
Mine was a complete coincidence. So
It was a subconscious, like, I'm doing William and Mary things today. I have to rep my green. I don't have my gold, but
yeah.
It's a lot easier to find like green things to wear than gold things, I feel like. But yeah, this is actually a polo from the Office of Student Leadership Development when I was a grad assistant advising Alma Mater Productions. I did that for 2 years, and that was a fun time. Anyway, it looks like we have pretty much we have more attendees than people who registered, so I don't know how that works. So it looks like everyone's here, which is really exciting. My name is Logan Reed. Welcome to this Monroe Scholars panel. I am an assistant dean of admission for William & Mary, and when I'm not helping run these digital day for admitted students virtual events, I'm reading applications. I am virtually traveling to high schools and college fairs, and then just helping out with various different admissions types of events. And the people surrounding me, at least on my Zoom, they're surrounding me, are the Monroe Scholars, and I'll get each of them to introduce themselves and say a little bit about themselves, and then we'll move on and answer any of you all's questions that you have for them.
Yeah, I can go first. So I'm Suhas. I'm a junior Monroe Scholar. I'm majoring in psychology and business on the pre-med track. I've done research through the Monroe Scholar program and also research kind of connected adjacent to the Monroe Scholar program with cardiovascular health and also just art therapy and stuff like that. And I really enjoy the Monroe Scholar Program, and I'm glad you guys are during part of this webinar to kind of learn more about it.
Yeah, I can go next. My name's Isabel Rippin. I'm a sophomore from Westchester, New York. I'm studying economics, and I did my research, my first year Monroe research this past summer. So almost a year now, but I looked at representation of Judaism in children's literature across 2 library collections. And this really stemmed right out of my Call 100 course that was on a similar topic. And that was really interesting. And I'm hoping to do my next research my junior year summer.
My name is Allison. I am a senior Monroe Scholar, chemistry major, and I've done a lot of research, a lot of summer research projects through the Monroe Scholar Program, used both the freshman and the upperclassmen funding for that, mostly chemistry work. And then right now I'm kind of capping off that whole process with an honors thesis. So that kind of became an extension of my Monroe opportunities.
Hi guys, my name is Nick Kaufman. I'm a junior Monroe Scholar from New Jersey. I'm majoring in business analytics and minoring in public health. And through the Monroe program, I've done research on the influence of dark humor on social media, on the way that people perceive different kinds of social issues and tragedies.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for introducing yourselves, and thank you for being here for this panel to provide good insight for our admitted Monroe Scholars. I am going to get started off with a question. I got a few questions already in place just in case, just to get the mind percolating for our attendees. So I'll just get started with what's your why, William and Mary? Why did you choose William and Mary amongst the thousands of colleges out there and amongst the schools that you ended up being admitted to? And then while they're answering the question, for those attendees, please feel free, if you have questions that you think of, throw them in the Q&A and we'll get to as many as we possibly can. So don't be afraid to throw it in the Q&A while they're answering a question. So if you want to just go in the same order that we started before and just go for your why, William and Mary.
Yeah, sounds great. So I think my why, William and Mary is a little twofold. So one was the actual Monroe Scholars Program. When I visited, I was really interested in the sort of undergraduate focused research. And as I mentioned before, I was pre-med and still kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think research as an undergraduate student is an amazing opportunity. So I was really kind of hooked onto that. And the second part, I was telling Logan about this earlier. I really liked Days for Admitted Students, which unfortunately you guys don't have the perfect experience for it, but like I was really captivated by the community at William and Mary, and I saw that through that event. So I'm just going to tell it to you right now. The community at William and Mary is really great, and it's just really collaborative, like innovative, and just I love the people around and how they kind of just like welcomed me, and I just really was captivated by that. So those are kind of two reasons why I just joined.
Yeah, for me, I was definitely in my college search looking for a school that really fits William and Mary's size. Like I was looking for this mid-sized institution where I had the ability to have smaller classes, since I was coming from an 150 student graduating class high school. I was looking for the smallest classes, that tight-knit community, which I really felt at William and Mary, but also felt that because it's a little bit larger on the mid-size, I was getting more of a broader experience than I had had in my hometown. And then I was also really looking for a lot of academic flexibility, which is William and Mary totally offered that to me. Thus far, I've gotten to explore in so many different disciplines in my classes and outside of the classroom. But I would say more, I really fell in love with the campus when I was here in person. And like Suhas was talking about, like that community of people that you interacted with and met. I know at my like Monroe admitted student situation, like experience, we had like a trivia event where I just had like a ton of fun talking with all these different people. And I just felt like this was a really great community to be engaged with.
I second everything about the people in the community. I don't want to like keep hammering that home because I'm sure you've heard that from many different sources at this point in like William & Mary stuff, but definitely love the people here. But I think the main reason I came to William & Mary was because of the research opportunities. Some other schools I applied to at the time kind of seemed a little bit less accessible to undergraduate research experiences. So whether that was like master's and PhD students kind of taking the lead in the STEM research laboratories. As a chemistry major, I really wanted to, as an undergraduate student, have a firsthand experience of the scientific method and how I can apply things that I was learning in the classroom directly and pretty quickly and early on. And I really definitely found that right away when I came here. So that was very validating, but that was my main reason. But then socially, I thought it was so cool whenever I would visit William & Mary or talk to anyone I knew that had gone there as a prospective student, everyone had like a really cool thing that they were interested in. There was no like one-sided or like basic person. I don't want to reduce anyone to that, but at William & Mary, there were just like so many people passionate about these really niche topics or like this really cool thing that they like to learn about or like do in their free time. And I feel like that's just like attributing to the quirky, educated, smart, driven like type of person that comes here. And I really like to kind of be surrounded by that energy and just, willingness for everyone to continue learning all the time.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone else has said so far. And to add another reason why I decided to come to William & Mary is I thought something super special that I found out when I went to Admitted Students Day and felt was how William & Mary is, institution obviously where extremely high in academic accomplishment and reputation. But what I loved about it was the fact that we have access to the resources and knowledge and faculty and students of other top colleges in the country, even the Ivy Leagues. But the difference is that I'm able to enjoy all those benefits, I think, in a culture here that's more positive and supportive of each other, which personally, as like a very self-motivated person, as I'm sure most of you guys are, since you're here and possibly coming into this program, I didn't feel like as much pressure externally to perform. And William & Mary for me was a place where I felt confident that I could be who I wanted to be and do what I wanted to do and come out in a good place at William & Mary, which is something that I did not feel at every other college that I had visited. And now, after being here for 3 years, I really feel like I've been able to really live through that. And I'm just proud and really enjoyed everything that I've experienced here so far.
That's awesome. I love all your answers. So we got some questions, which is great. So Allison asks, this is an offshoot of the why William & Mary question. For the out-of-state scholars, what was it like about William & Mary? What was it about William & Mary that stood out to you and made it worth paying out-of-state tuition for you?
Yeah, I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm out of state. And yeah, to be honest, I was also thinking about this. It was a big thing, just because in-state tuition is like it's a good catch. That's how they get you. But I think what I was really thinking about was one, William & Mary was really good with financial aid. They were working with me to really kind of mitigate the difference between the two sort of prices. So that's definitely something to check out. And again, it was the Monroe Scholars Program, I think, that really brought me to being like to justify the out of state, because again, you're coming to a school where you're already like kind of set up for success, as Nick was talking about, without sort of the extended pressure. Like you're able to be in a school which has the culture as well as the sort of top, well, it is a top school, like like the cultivation of the scholars program, which I think really brought me in with the financial aid.
I could jump in also. Like I said before, I'm from New Jersey, and like Suha said, that definitely was something that I had to think about, especially in terms of tuition and the cost of either going to school, in my home state or out of state. But something, and it kind of goes off what I said before, that really was interesting to me when I started meeting students and alumni and things like that, is even though, William and Mary is a public state university, the connections and the network that you become a part of at William and Mary extends far outside just in Virginia. And so even though, every summer I've been back home in New Jersey, I've met a lot of people and had a lot of help and resources from home, New York, across the country that I was able to get in touch with. And that is something that I found extremely valuable, because it's something that, I guess at a public school, you don't, and especially like a state school, you don't expect to have, I guess, that kind of reach and flexibility in terms of opportunities and the help you're able to get. But that was something that definitely stood out to me. And honestly, I thought stretched even further than a lot of the colleges that I was considering in New Jersey. And so I thought that was one reason. Another reason that, I'm here instead of home, and that I think the out-of-state tuition was worth it, and I was able to receive financial aid as well, is just because of the fact that I think William Mary offered an experience that I wouldn't have been able to have at home. And that's not, just because I'm in another state. I think that this school is, has the great reputation and the happy students that it has for a reason. And so I wanted to be here for that.
Awesome.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Yeah.
Just as a senior who's graduating in just a month, I just wanted to add into that connection that Nick was talking about, like the alumni network, and just like generally, I found that William Mary kind of gives off private school vibes, or can at least like the benefits I saw like from going to private schools that I'd gotten into around the same time as a college senior. I found that I was gonna experience them at William Mary anyways, just with that tight-knit community, but then like very connected alumni network. And as a senior who's applying to jobs now, I've kind of experienced that, been able to use that to my advantage. People are very, very excited when they see William Mary on your resume. And I've heard the same for people applying to medical schools, graduate schools, stuff like that. I have a final interview tomorrow with the company that I got in touch with initially through William Mary graduate. So I just want to say that that's definitely something very significant that you might not be thinking about now as incoming freshmen in the fall, but definitely important on the large scale and in the long term, because we're going to college to get to bigger and better places in the future even too. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, good luck on your interview, Allison. That's exciting that you got that connection. Yeah, so just for the next question, it just says, I know that Monroe scholars can live in, I always butcher this name, Telefaro or Monroe. Which one would y'all recommend?
Between Monroe and Tolliver, I
knew that.
I didn't want to
do that, and I just totally blanked on it.
I wouldn't I feel like they're both great dorms. I can speak to I lived in Monroe, so I'll speak to that, and it was a great experience. And I think kind of connecting to another one of the questions someone was talking about, if one of your friends is not a Monroe scholar, like you can totally live in Monroe, and it's just it was just a great experience. It was nice to be surrounded by that people that like it was just like Nick and I were actually freshman roommates, and we just had like a great hall, and the freshman dorm experience that you always hear about, like I really got that at Monroe. It's a good size. It has an attic and like sink in your room, which was kind of hype. We were freshman year, and it was a good experience. I don't really know much about Tolliver, but I know that a few of my friends who lived there also had a great experience too.
Anyone else want to weigh in on that question?
I was gonna say, I know Nick and Suhas lived in Monroe. Isabel, were you also in Monroe?
Yeah, I was Monroe.
So yeah, so none of us can really speak to Tolliver, but I too have heard from people that Tolliver is a great place. It's definitely different sizes. Tolliver is much smaller than Monroe, so I think that as a whole, Tolliver gets a little bit closer than like the whole building of Monroe Hall. But I found that I got really close with the people on my floor. And then just in general, it's a really great support system. Like coming into college during orientation, you really get acclimated to everyone that you're living with. So it's great to meet people in the Monroe Scholar program right off the bat too.
I can just speak to, I have two friends, like two of my close friends lived in Tolliver freshman year. And both of them, they're different, like one's a sophomore now, one's a junior. So both were different experiences, but they both ended up in like a group chat with their entire hall in Tolliver. So Tolliver's very close knit. One of them had a book club, like they would just hang out in like the little lounge area. So I would say that Tolliver definitely, like, you get to know everyone in the building, whereas Monroe's a little bit bigger, so you might not know every single person, but they're both definitely really good in terms of forming those freshman year relationships with the people on your hall or building.
Nice. Anyone else want to add to that, or do you feel like everything's?
I feel like there isn't too much else to add, but what I would just say is I feel like regardless if you ended up in Monroe or Tolliver first, both of them are in really great locations on campus, either way, right on the Sunken Gardens, especially for your freshman year courses. You'll probably be within like a 2-minute walk of a majority of your classes, which is always really convenient. And I think that, like everyone is saying, both halls, and I have friends that have lived in Tolliver also, had gotten really close. Like me and Suhas, for example, are still great friends with our neighbors and a lot of people on our freshman hall. And I think just because of the fact that in a freshman hall, you're all going to be going through this kind of transition to college life and the experience together, that I don't know anyone, don't know anyone honestly that has had a negative experience with their halls in Monroe before. So I think either way that you'll be in good hands and in a good place.
So we got a couple questions that I'm sifting through that are similar residence hall kind of questions. So Michael asked, one of my friends is not a Monroe scholar, but we're thinking of rooming. Would he be allowed to room with me in Monroe or Tolliver? Or would you suggest living in these dorms over other freshman dorms?
This actually happened to me, so I can start answering that. My friend and I, who is not a Monroe scholar, wanted to live together, and we were going to pref dorms, and we decided to pref Monroe on the housing form. I don't know if that's changed in the past like 3 or 4 years, but yeah, so we were still able to use the fact that I was a Monroe scholar to get into the Monroe Hall dorm, and I also liked that we knew where we were going to be kind of a little bit earlier than like everyone else, kind of waiting to see like where they were going to end up. And then like we were talking about earlier, the location of Monroe is great. So I think all the freshman dorms are kind of near like key points on on campus, but just like by being by the Sunken Gardens as freshmen and also being close to a dining hall, Sadler, and then also Wawa and just like key spots around campus was really key for us. And we wanted to kind of have the security of knowing where we were going to be. So I would definitely suggest using that if you wanted to. There are some people that live in Monroe Hall that aren't Monroe scholars. It's not solely Monroe scholars. And a lot of these roommates, I believe, happen because it's like one person's a Monroe scholar and they pull the other person in, but it's just really fun to still be around Monroe scholars, but and they're close friends and roommates too. So
yeah, and kind of going off that, someone asked, are Monroe scholars allowed to live in residence halls other than Monroe or Tolliver? Which I can say definitely. And then would you recommend this? Would be also part of the question.
it depends what kind of experience you want. So I think the Monroe Scholar program is really cool, where it's supporting research opportunities and kind of intellectual development, but socially, you either kind of choose to embrace it, or people can just kind of use it for the more academic and intellectual side, which is what it's designed for, which is awesome, and definitely a big reason to be excited that you're a Monroe Scholar. But joining as a freshman into the Monroe kind of atmosphere of just like living with everyone and kind of speaking about, oh, like, are you applying for the Monroe Research Grant, and like what's your major, what are you interested in, kind of having that chatter when you're still figuring out what you're interested in and kind of deciding what you want to do with your college time was really cool. And then a lot of the connections I made in Monroe Hall, we all kind of scattered to the wind. I'm STEM, and a lot of my friends from Monroe Hall were more involved in humanities. So I don't know how much time I would have spent with them if we didn't live together from day one of college. So I really liked that. But if you want to explore other housing options, like, you can definitely stay involved in the Monroe Scholar Program and not live with people. So
Yeah, and kind of going on that, like, I feel like I would recommend it. I think that it's a good experience, and it's like coming into like college and like kind of thinking about everything. You were like, oh, like, do I want to define myself to this Monroe Scholars Program or something like that? Something I was thinking of. And in the end of the day, like, I feel like I only gain positives. Like, you're not really like in college, like every year your friends change. Like as a junior, like, yeah, Nick and I are still in touch with our freshman hall, but like I've made a lot more friends in other clubs and other classes and stuff like that. So you're really not like tying yourself together. And that, I think, is like a huge thing, like, you shouldn't be worried about. And just in general, like, there's like so many other opportunities to like make your group, and you're not really defining yourself by wanting to have an environment of academic enrichment as well.
Yeah. So kind of going on a little bit of a different topic. Next question is, how engaged are you all in volunteering, and where have you had the opportunities to do so?
I guess I could hop in first. So at William Mary, honestly, there are so many opportunities to volunteer. So if there's a cause that you care about, I could almost guarantee you that there is an organization or opportunity to contribute to it. But personally, I have been pretty engaged in volunteering up until the COVID pandemic kind of, has changed, I guess, the way that we give our time, especially in terms of volunteering and the types of events that we're able to have. But before then, I used to actually, Logan, I was on AMP my freshman and sophomore
I
year.
swear I
Yeah.
recognize. Okay. Yeah.
And,
I was like, I know Nick. There's
yeah. And so I really enjoyed AMP as an opportunity to give my time back to the campus community, but also we put on a lot of events that either benefited other organizations or raised awareness of certain causes and things happening around the campus community. Another really great volunteering, I guess, community at William Mary, in a place where I've put a lot of time in, is volunteering within Greek life too, which has been a really positive experience for me as well. And there's all kinds of different, also just outside of being part of an organization, I've jumped on a lot of, I guess, more specific volunteering initiatives. Like one is called Campus Kitchen, which hasn't really been happening as much during COVID, but I'm sure it will come back. Is I used to go and help serve and create and cook meals for homeless or poor people in the Williamsburg community. And that's one thing that I also was involved with. So there's a lot of opportunities there for that. And I think generally in the William and Mary community that volunteering is something that students are like proud to be a part of.
definitely. And there's so many opportunities. You can kind of mix what you're interested in, like personally, with how you want to impact your community, locally or bigger picture. My personal like interest in terms of helping my community was more health related. I did stuff in high school with like health education, and so I joined a group on campus called Health Outreach Peer Educators. So we focus more on like mental wellness, like sexual wellness, physical wellness, kind of education and programming for students. And so working directly with just peers was really cool for that. But then also I got involved in blood drives that we would host on campus, and I was more so getting involved with Greater Williamsburg community members. They would come, stop by, donate blood, and we would help kind of facilitate that, which was really cool. I've also heard of different trips you can take to go like serve in different parts of Virginia or things like that on breaks. I have some friends that love to do that too. So kind of depending on where you want to volunteer and how you want to do it, there's just so many options.
Yeah, and just to continue on with that, I agree with everything that Nick and Allison said, and I think that my freshman sophomore year before COVID, I was mostly just doing it based on like other people and like what they volunteered at, and again, collaborative. And I also did it through my fraternity and like other stuff. But then right before COVID, which is unfortunately I just learned about it, is we have a community engagement office, and I knew that we had that, but they have so many volunteer opportunities, and you just like schedule, like you can literally just walk in, they have office hours and stuff like that, and just be like, I want to volunteer. And I was like, I'm looking to do this. And I became a hospice volunteer through that. And I also, there was this really, really cool one called cycling with the young or something like that. So you just like you bike around like old people in Colonial Williamsburg. And that stopped right before COVID, but like just like crazy fun opportunities, just again, through either people or just the actual institution through the community engagement office.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, through Office of Community Engagement, I get their weekly newsletter. So sign up for that, because literally every week I get this abundant list of cool ways I could give back. And it doesn't stop with COVID. Like, there's still so many online things that they're doing also. So definitely sign up for that if you're interested in volunteering.
Yeah, our Office of Community Engagement has some great opportunities for students for sure, as well as all the different student clubs and organizations. A lot of them have some sort of community engagement. So next question, how does the Scholars Program impact the amount of time you have for activities outside of the classroom? So you all mentioned that you are obviously involved in various things, but I was curious what your answer would be to that question.
I would say you have ample time to, or honestly, ample freedom to choose how you want to spend your time. So I can speak back to freshman year. I remember there were a lot of people that really only wanted to hang out with people in the dorm, other Monroe scholars, that kind of stuff. There are people that wanted to kind of branch out and like join different student groups and social organizations and spread their time in more directions. Like personally, I'm involved in the Monroe Scholar Program. I have 2 jobs on campus in the Peer Scholarship Advising Office, and with Campus Rec, I'm a group fitness instructor, and I find time to volunteer, do academics and research, and then I'm also in a social sorority. So there's not like any all-consuming commitments in that list, I guess, focusing on academics and research, of course, but it's really cool at William & Mary. I found that like you can really have the freedom to choose how you want to spend your time depending on like this semester, like I'm really passionate about XYZ and I want to spend more time here. I think that's really cool. The Monroe Scholar Program is there to support you and give you the opportunity to get more engaged in research and those kinds of discussions and events. But you know, if you're really overwhelmed, like it's not required at all. You don't have to use your research funding. You don't have to do research in the summer, but it's this really cool opportunity presented to us if we want to take it.
Yeah, I would say pretty minimally, honestly. There are after your freshman year, if you like, and I wouldn't recommend this, but if you really wanted to, like, you could literally not interact with the Monroe Scholar Program if you wanted. Like, no one would ever know unless you told them. Like, there's really not a lot of it's whatever you want to get out of it and how much you put into it. Like, there are weekly or bi-weekly enrichment opportunities where they get speakers where you can go and you can just like, you get emails about it and you can be like, oh, this is interesting to what I want to learn. You can go. Like Allison was saying, you could like scholarships and research stuff if you would like. And yeah, like I'm involved in like student government and a fraternity and Charles Center and a bunch of other stuff that aren't related to the Monroe thing. So that doesn't, honestly, I would say very minimally hinder your ability to do anything on campus.
Nice. Yeah, and that is a great transition to the next question of, are there any collaborative events between just Monroe Scholar students? I know you already mentioned that. Are there any other types of events that you would say would be to just between Monroe Scholars?
Yeah, so I could name a couple other things that go on for just Monroe Scholars. The first is the like Allison mentioned, the Monroe Enrichment Series. Those are really special opportunities for just Monroe scholars to be able to get together and meet with faculty either from the college or from other universities to kind of learn about the work that they do. And honestly, I really enjoy going to them because I feel like every time I've learned something new or gained a new perspective that I didn't have before, which is really useful. And outside of that, obviously there is the Monroe research opportunities, and what comes with that is through the Charles Center, which we all work for. We offer lots of workshops on research, developing the research question, applying for the grants that we encourage Monroe scholars to come to. And then also, one of my favorite things that I've really enjoyed is, especially during final season, we have these kinds of social events called like Monroe study breaks, and the name kind of could change, but basically we create two like fun, like non-academic opportunities for Monroe scholars to meet and spend time together and kind of just see some faces that maybe they might not see every day, either, in their academic department or in their dorm. And that's also a really great way to make friends, especially as you're starting here at the college.
Awesome. And so next question would be, do you work directly with professors when doing research? And I guess you can kind of go into like how that looks.
Yeah, there's kind of like two main ways that we kind of talk about how you can get involved with research. One, well, not to like define it, but like generally two different ways. One is kind of like if you have a class with a professor, or you just like looking at the website and you see a professor's doing a certain research, like you really like their lab or their research projects, you just email them and be like, hey, could I join? And that's a way where like you're working kind of closely with the professor and you're kind of doing their research. And then the other way is kind of like what I was talking about with art therapy. Like that's just like mental wellness is something that is a passion of mine, and I thought art therapy was really cool. So I came up with this art therapy research project, and then I found a professor to just be like a mentor. Like you just need like an advisor to go through the process, and that was pretty independent versus the research I'm doing now is literally working with a doctor and a professor together, and we're literally doing their research kind of thing. So it's a little bit of either or with that.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any other thing to add, or does that kind of cover it pretty much? Awesome. All right, so next question. Is there a lot to do off campus in Williamsburg or Richmond?
Definitely, but there's also a lot to do on campus. I remember asking that question a lot to like my tour guides, like other William Mary students when I was first coming here. And I got here and I was like, why did I even ask? Because there was just so much to do on campus that I didn't actually get off campus a lot, at least the first couple of years I was at William and Mary. But yeah, the Williamsburg area is really cool. There's like farmers markets and like second Sundays. We have street festivals on Sundays in Merchant Square area, and like a lot of stuff right off campus you can just walk to. Like you don't need to have a car or anything. But then you can also take the bus to different places to go to shops or restaurants and those kinds of things. There's also lots of trails and kind of like hiking and beaches and those kinds of things if you want to spend some time outside. But I do, and Richmond, of course, but that's like a little bit further away. But I want to emphasize that there's so much to do on campus that you might not find yourself leaving as much as you might think up front. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that a little bit.
I could jump in. I think I agree, Allison, with everything you said. There is so much to do on campus and also off. My freshman year, and honestly, I still don't have a car here. And that's just like was a personal choice, but I usually find myself staying really busy on campus, especially with all the events that go on. I know Logan could probably vouch for this too, but when I was on AMP, there are things happening every single weekend for such a variety of interests and things, from trivia to bringing comedians on campus to the spring concert to different kinds of mental health, wellness events for the students. There really is so much, but also off campus is so much to do too, even within a walking distance. Colonial Williamsburg is a beautiful area, lots of really cool history and things to see that as William and Mary students, you actually will get a free pass and ticket to any of the kinds of events and things that happen in that area, and all the exhibits you'd be able to go to during the winter time. They set up an ice rink. There's so many restaurants and places to eat. And then if you are able to, have a car or have friends with cars, there's a lot of stuff in the immediate area too. Like I know in like the great weather that we've been having, there's a beach called College Creek that is literally like a 5-minute drive away that a lot of people like to go to when it's nice and get some time out in the sun for like a little getaway. But also there's shopping centers, there's the Williamsburg outlets, Newtown, which is another place with a lot of restaurants, and there's a really cheap movie theater there too that's really fun. So there is plenty to do, and honestly, even after 3 years, like there's so much left for me to do. So you will definitely have your fill of fun and just different things to try.
They give you like a checklist during orientation, or maybe did you guys get this checklist thing of all the activities that there are to do as like a typical William & Mary student, like go to football games and like go around Colonial Williamsburg, but then there's just so many more, and it was like a front and back 12-point or 10-point fonts page. And as a senior, like I have to say, I haven't even been able to do all of them. Like there's just so many like little things that go on different seasons throughout the year too. So
Yeah, I think just like a way to think about it kind of that I've been learning is that it's like I think Isabel was mentioning, like the size of the school, it's like 6,000. So it's not really small, but it is like on the smaller side compared to like a big city school. And I think that plays into the idea of like when you're trying to find things to do, you just like find things to do on campus because you kind of know most of the people around you and you know what's happening pretty much everywhere on campus. Versus like if you were in a city, it would be like you kind of have your own like little like subsection of people, and then you're just like, oh, let's go to like in Boston, like let's go to Newbury Street or something like that. I know my friends who go to BU and Northeastern do that, so it's like a little different with that. But that's why like I haven't even gone to the farmers market yet, and I do stuff all the time. It's like it's like I really should. I know. Allison's kind of giving me a look, but
It's tough to wake up early on Saturday. I get it. Yeah, so we'll just move on. We still got a bunch of questions. So could you talk about the benefits of being a Monroe Scholar? What benefits do you have that other students do not? Do you have a favorite benefit? Or it says, do you have a favorite plus of being a scholar? I'm not sure, but I guess maybe a favorite benefit. Yeah.
I would say that my favorite benefit of being a scholar is definitely the research that I got to undertake. Coming out of high school, honestly, research wasn't really on my like view of college. It wasn't really what I was thinking. I was just like, this sounds like a great program. And I really liked William & Mary, even just like outside of the Monroe Scholar program. But then just naturally being here, I got involved with the program, and I think that research got me so much more involved in what I was learning academically than anything that I'd ever done before. Like I got to look so in depth at this topic that I personally chose to undertake, and it was something of meaning to me. And so I think that was a really special part of the Monroe Scholar program, is that you get to create this research project that is totally from you. You get to pick something that's interest of you, and then you get to go and look at it in this really in-depth way with the support of the professor or your advisor who's helping you along the way and giving you steps of like how to go about research, as I'd never done it before. I didn't know what was like the appropriate method to do that. And I think just having that support really pushed me academically in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I think that was really rewarding part of the experience for me so far.
That helps answer another question that someone had, that if you had did you have any experience in research during high school, or was the Monroe Scholar experience at William & Mary your first opportunity? If you had no previous background in research, did you find it difficult to determine a topic of study and carry out your ideas as opposed to others who had a research background? So Isabel, that was perfect to be able to answer that question as well. I love it. But yeah, do you have any other benefits or anything else to add to those questions?
Kind of to elaborate on what Isabel was saying, like there's sort of like a pipeline into the research opportunities at William Mary that Monroe that's targeted at Monroe scholars versus it being maybe a little bit more difficult to get those grants and funding if you're like just applying at large at William Mary. So we do lots of different programming through the Charles Center just to support Monroe scholars in the application process and finding a topic and finding an advisor and a mentor. So I know that can be super intimidating, especially if you are coming from high school with like little to no research experience. I know I was in the same boat as well. And that is just super helpful. And I felt very, very supported the entire way. And I don't know if it's super I don't know if it's on everyone's radar to get involved in research, independent research as a freshman in college per se, but the Monroe Scholar Program is a great way of kind of getting your feet wet and like a smaller scale research project right off the bat. And I think that made a lot of my peers and myself more comfortable going into upperclassmen research projects and kind of getting more serious about the process. There's also a lot of free food in non-COVID times in terms of like going to speaker events or just like Monroe social events or study break stuff. So that's a little silly, but I did like the catering.
Thanks. And so just to be able to make sure we get to all the questions, there might be some of them that we might be typing the answer to, and I'll be sure to review that at the end just to, if anyone didn't see the answer being typed for your question. But the next one is, what is the ratio of STEM/humanities students in the Monroe program? Oh, and you're welcome, Sophia. Thanks for joining us.
I don't know if any of us have the exact like facts and figures, but if you're a humanities interested person and you're not sure if research is like if that's your thing, I found that there were a lot of humanities people in the program, and a lot of my friends who were like English majors, for example, didn't think that they were going to get involved in research and did. And you know, our definition of research is very broad, and you can make it whatever you want. That's such a vague answer, but
I also don't know like the specific ratios, but I know this month we're doing undergraduate research month. And so on William & Mary's website, you'll be able to go and see like the abstracts of all these different first year Monroe projects that were done, junior, like upperclassmen Monroe projects. And you'll be able to see like that ratio of STEM to humanities because they divide it by like what disciplines people have researched. And you're going to see, like Ali was saying, like there's just such a broad array of people doing research. But I think that'd be a really cool way to see maybe that ratio and get insight into how broad people are doing research.
And I will put a link in the chat for you all to see if you want to visit that page to see the undergraduate research month information. But yeah, I mean, I can say from admission side of things, there's a broad spread of various Monroe scholars from the STEM or non-STEM or humanities field. So, and then also all incoming freshmen come in undeclared. So it definitely, there's a broad spectrum of students who are interested in various different things. But yeah, and let's see. So, sick. And yeah, and then for the question for Suhas about the balancing a non-STEM major with the prereqs for pre-med, Suhas sent the answer in for the chat, so feel free to look at that. Great, and then the next question would be, what were some of the research projects you did for Monroe? Did you think the scholarship gave you more freedom to explore more ambitious topics? And then did you get to work with faculty? I know we kind of answered some of that already, but do you all have anything to add to that?
I could add in quick because I saw that question about, oh wait, never mind. That was a different question about if we did research in high school too before coming. And so I did do a project through high school. Honestly, it's kind of funny. It was in a STEM area. And after I got to William & Mary, I decided that I no longer wanted to pursue like a pre-medical or STEM track. But the research project that I did, I could speak shortly on it, was I studied how exposure to dark humor following either certain tragedies or disasters or just social issues in general affect the way that people perceive those issues. And I think that I would credit my Monroe scholarship to let me explore that topic because, as I said before, I'm a business analytics public health minor. And so that study I did with the psychology department in an area where I don't have a major or minor. And that I think is one of the great things about the Monroe Research Grant, in the fact that I was able to perform research in any area that I found interesting, even if it wasn't directly related to my personal course of study. And that is a really cool thing about this program is like, obviously it's Monroe's program is helpful to let us get deeper into the area for our career or our future interests. But at the same time, we are just encouraged to get our feet wet wherever we want and just develop research skills in a diversity of areas. So I was really glad to do this project and present it at the Monroe Research Symposium. And I was able to work with faculty. I had a faculty mentor, just like everyone does for Monroe project as well. And that was a really helpful, positive experience.
Nice. And we'll just move to the next one just to make sure we're getting to the various questions. Do you find yourselves going to the enrichment series that the Scholars Program offers often?
I've been to several. They, at least in my experience, they've kind of been around lunchtime times, sort of. So usually they'll kind of work with people's schedules in that respect, and they're catered. But they also send out either schedules or like invitations like ahead of time. So if you are really interested in like a specific topic, you can kind of see that in advance and put it in your schedule and kind of plan around that. So I would go to the ones that I was more interested in as compared to others. But then I had friends that wanted to go to everything and just learn everything because they were all really cool niche topics, but not required attendance at all.
Nice. And I know Suhas is not here anymore because he had to go to class, but a late thank you for him joining us. So yeah, I'm glad he was able to answer the questions about pre-med and everything. Also, if anyone else is interested in asking questions further about pre-med, Beverly Scher is awesome. She's the pre-med advisor, and I just sent a link in the chat for you to feel free to reach out to her. She's happy to talk to any prospective students about kind of what that looks like. Anyway, so the next question is, where can you get a job on campus? And I will say from my knowledge is that you can get it from a lot of different areas, whether it be particular offices. There's usually there's a website that we have all the jobs posted, but y'all can kind of speak from your experiences if you know a friend or if you yourself have gotten a job.
I guess I could get it started. So the first thing is actually me, Allison, and Isabella all work in the Peer Scholarship Advisor's Office in the Charles Center. And that is a job actually that is offered every year only to Monroe scholars. And that's something that you'll get to apply for your freshman year if you're interested. And I guess just to give a quick of what we do is we work to help students, undergraduate and graduate, walk them through the process of applying to scholarships and research grants. And that includes the Monroe Scholarship Research Grants that you're offered as Monroe scholars. But outside of that, I have a lot of friends that work in other departments. Other like big hiring jobs here is the IT department always needs help, and is hiring for people to help with things like maintaining like equipment on campus and other stuff like that. And also I have a lot of friends that have really enjoyed working at Aromas, either in Swem Library or the Daily Grind or some of the other little coffee shops and cafes around campus. And they've done that as well. And then I would say the other really big category would be becoming a teaching assistant. And I know that it is kind of the way it works is different based on like a professor's course and the department. But I was a teaching assistant in the business school for a semester, and that was also a really good experience, both like for learning, but also I was able to make a little bit of extra spending money to use like on the weekends here. So yeah.
Campus Rec is also a big employer if you're involved in fitness, wellness, outdoor activities, or just like you want like a flexible amount of hours. They're a huge student employer here.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of different facets and ways to find student employment. And then there are positions that are set aside for work study. So if you look at your financial aid package and you wanted to take advantage of that, we have that set aside. If you look at our website for jobs and whatnot. So yeah, so next question, where do you find the best place on campus to recharge / take a mental break after a long week?
I would say I really love, well, I have two places. I love the Daily Grind. The atmosphere like is just, they're always playing music, and I grab like an iced tea. I don't drink coffee, so my iced tea, I sit there and just like enjoy the music and sit with a friend and hang out. Or I love when it's nice out, I get a blanket and lay on the sunken gardens, and just like soak in the sun. And like we had a spring break day this week, so I sat there and like did some painting, read my book. And I know a lot of people like to hammock. That's not my personal thing, but I know people do hammock a lot there.
Great. And then we'll just go ahead and just because I know we're getting close to it. So we'll just do kind of a little bit, just one person answering each question. It's got a few more left, so that's good. Is Greek life a big thing on campus, or do you have a relatively, quote, normal social experience without being in a fraternity or sorority? And I know just off the bat, just from the macro level, it's about 1/3 of students are involved in fraternity or sorority life. So yeah, so I know it's not, 2/3 of the students are not involved in it, but I know you all can speak from your personal experience.
Yeah, I'm in a sorority here, but I joined as a sophomore, so I had a year of kind of figuring out kind of what I wanted to do and join on campus before that, and was not affiliated with Greek life. And I had a great time. I had lots of friends. You just kind of, you look for it in different clubs, and I was really close to people in my dorm. And I felt like I had not normal, I had a great social experience without being in a sorority. But then I joined it, and it was, an equally positive experience. You kind of meet a new group of people, and just like joining any social organization on campus, it's attracting people because of their values and social activities. So people from all different majors, all different involvements around campus were joining. So that was really fun to kind of broaden my horizon socially.
All right. And then, so next question. And I know we have another session that's starting at 4 o'clock with the Zoom account. So we'll just try and do some speed round. So what do y'all think of only being able to pursue 2 courses of study, i.e. major and minor or double major? Does it hinder you academically? Asking because I'm interested in biology, Spanish, and music.
I guess I could speak on this a little bit. So I am just doing a major and a minor, but personally, I know that it could sound, especially Allison, like you say, you want to do biology, Spanish, and music. So, well, I get that it could seem like, I don't know if the right word is like disappointing, but odd that you wouldn't be able to do major or minor combination of all 3. What I will say is even if, your degree would not be able to say all 3 of those, unless you got some kind of special permission or something, I'm not sure as well versed on how it works exactly, but I have taken courses actually in music because it's another part of my life on campus that I'm really into. And even though, I'm not going for a minor in it, you're not barred from taking those classes if you just have a personal interest in it and just want to continue doing them. So while you may not be able to do a 3rd major or minor, it doesn't keep you from having the academic experience in that field if you want. And honestly, I think that just taking the classes alone will do a lot for you, just like it has for me, in terms of just letting me get deeper knowledge and enjoyment of those subjects.
Nice. And then just to move up for the last question we got, which is exciting, good timing. So they have a specific question actually for Nick's research. How exactly were you able to conduct the research? Did you do it on campus, from home? How did it work?
Yeah, so I know too, we don't have too much time left, so I could answer it quick here, but Irene or anyone else, if you want to know more about it, I put my email in the chat, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions or anything after this, or just talk about William & Mary in general. But the way I did my study was I conducted it through a survey that I distributed through the internet and to friends, family, as many people as I could. And so given, I guess, the online nature of my research, I was able to do it from home during the summer. But during normal times, if you're doing a project that requires you to be at William & Mary, you do have the opportunity to do it from school if you need to, but it's by no means a requirement that you're in a certain area while you're conducting the research. So it kind of depends on what you're doing. For example, I have some friends that did Monroe research in a more STEM lab environment. And so they stayed on campus for 4 weeks during the summer to do their research in the lab, because obviously we don't have those resources at home. So it really depends, but you have a lot of flexibility, especially when you're designing your research, to do what is going to be best for you.
Yeah, and Isabel also gave a good addition to that. We also have a self-design your own major. So that's also another great way if you wanted to try and combine various interests other than just double majoring and having major minor, that you could really combine those options. Well, I just wanted to thank you all, the panelists, for attending and giving y'all a perspective, because I think it's so valuable to get the student perspective, because y'all are living through this right now. I can talk students' ears off all day, but I think that if they hear from the current students going through it, that it's the most meaningful, because that's what people want to know. And I want to also thank you, attendees, for joining us and looking at William & Mary. And we're so excited, and we hope to see you all in the fall as a Monroe Scholar. And also wanted to congratulate you all on getting accepted and getting the Monroe Scholarship. That's only about 10% of applicants get the Monroe Scholarship. So that is very exciting. And yeah, I hope you all have a good rest of your week. And we have plenty of other events happening throughout the week. So please feel free to look out for it. And then we got some trivia going on later in the week. So we got some fun stuff. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I know that the panelists, some of them put their emails up there. And so feel free to reach out to them if you have any further questions. And yeah, thank you all so much. See, I'll do the awkward waving for Zoom.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah.